Good afternoon. This is Michelle Cummings Steele. I would like to call this meeting of the Naming Committee of the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to order. Today is September 1st, 2020. The Parks Board must vote on the record that the COVID-19 pandemic requires it to hold a telephonic meeting as permitted under the Governor's Executive Order number 16, and that contrary rules are suspended. I will call the roll of the members present and participating in this meeting. Commissioner Anderson.
Present.
Commissioner Gentry. Commissioner Haynes.
Present.
Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Johnston.
Present.
Commissioner Scott Barnes.
Present.
Thank you. I want to note for the record that Commissioner Scott Barnes and myself are part of the naming committee, but any of our members of the Parks Board can vote in this matter, anything before the naming committee. Today we have before us, I'm sorry. Yes, I did the present. I'm sorry, you all. I wasn't sure I was chairing this, but here we go. We have before us 08-20-03. The Honorable Sharon W. Hurt, Member of Council at Large, requests the board to rename Hadley Park Nashville Freedom Riders Park. That is before us today. Open the meeting for discussion of this item before us. If there are any comments that need to be raised or any questions that need to be asked, I do have one myself, but wanted to give opportunity for our board members to speak into this issue.
This is Susanna, and I just wanted to ask if Director Odom could speak to the process of how we are making decisions about renaming. If you could just talk through the process and the steps.
Yes, ma'am. So the request, as we all know, is to rename Hadley Park. There is currently existing a park board policy, policy 3001, particularly section L, that states no park once named may ever be changed. So if it is the desire of this naming committee to make a recommendation to the full Parks Board that policy be suspended, that again, that recommendation would need to be made to the full Parks Board to vote on it, to suspend this policy, to allow this to go forth. As well, in addition, the Parks Board, if the Parks Board approves throughout this policy, at the end of this process, approves renaming the park, Metro will then have to file a petition with the State Historical Commission for approval to rename the park, since it is on public property. So in short, this decision, the final decision, does not lie with the Parks Board, but it is, the decision of the Parks Board is the beginning of the process.
Thank you. Thanks for explaining that.
We have received comments and input from the public. We have been collecting those. Our administration in Parks has been collecting those for us. I wanted to put on the record that we have received those. And I would like to recommend to the full Parks Board. Director Odom, I think that's your phone. You could mute out for us. Thank you. I would like to recommend to the Parks Board from this naming committee that we have a period of public input. I recognize that we are in a COVID situation where social distancing is a of utmost importance, but it can be done through mail, U.S. mail, telephone, and email. We have been receiving information in that way already, email, telephone, and U.S. mail, but I would like to recommend that we have a period of public input beginning, if possible, after this meeting and going through the month of September with a report back for us in October to act on. I believe that we should hear from the public as it relates to this park. I don't believe that what the comments that have been received have been representative. And so that would be my recommendation, that this is not a decision of just the Parks Board and how we move forward, but that the community has input, because that park, Hadley Park, is a staple in the community. And so what does changing the name mean? Again, I just believe that the public should be involved in weigh in on that decision, will be my recommendation.
Michelle, this is Jeff. A couple of questions for Monique and the staff. On average, is there a number of new parks that either the city will buy or that we're given every year, and that we have other naming opportunities? I certainly applaud Council Lady Hurt for the thought of Freedom Riders Park. My question for us as we consider this over the next few weeks is, are there new parks that would be better suited for this name? I certainly know at the most recent Capitol View Park, choosing the name Frankie Pierce has had a huge impact on the neighborhood. So how often do we receive new parks, and will we have other naming opportunities?
I would say that right now we don't have any new unnamed parks, so the naming opportunities are not there at this point. However, I can't predict, future opportunities. Surely there will be new parks in the future, but as of right now, there are no unnamed parks in the system.
Thank you, Director Odom. Are there any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. Dr. Steele, great point about the public input, and I had that same thought too. And I guess one of my questions is a little technical related to COVID, and I guess I'm it's just one of the challenges, I think, of being in this pandemic life we have, and wondering if there are alternatives to email or letter writing that might open up a different form of input that's, maybe more face-to-face or as close can be. So I'm not sure who I'm asking that question to, but I wanted to see if there's an additional ways that we could get input from people.
This is Director Odom, Commissioner Scott Barnes. I think given the state of the pandemic, I think email, U.S. mail, and then telephone are appropriate methods to collect the information. So in addition to the two means of gathering information that you mentioned, we would also incorporate, make a dedicated telephone line for folks to leave their comments.
Commissioner Scott Barnes, were you thinking of a Zoom or webinar or something of that nature, technical?
Yeah, I guess I'm just not really sure what the options are, but yeah, that would be better than nothing. But I think that it's not nothing to offer the opportunity for people to email and phone in. So I appreciate the sentiment. I just was wondering if there were additional options.
I'll just chime in. This is Monique. I think those three options, again, given the state of the public health issue, I believe those are reasonable and equitable. I think in my mind, I'm thinking about equity. And everyone does not have access to technology to email. With U.S. mail, there's involved a stamp, and then the next best or most accessible means of communication would be telephone, I believe. So I think those are reasonable and appropriate ways for us to try to make a way to hear from the greatest number of people and make a way for their voices to be heard without creating a problem.
Monique, this is Jeff Haynes. A question for Councilor Tom Cross. Obviously, in planning commission matters, we're required by law to send out notices within X number of feet of the properties. In this particular case, do the parks bylaws require us to send out notices and to solicit feedback in this process?
This is Tom Cross in Metro Legal. I am not familiar with an express policy that would require that in the same way that it's required for the Planning Commission to send out notices to adjacent property owners.
Mr. Haynes, we would, however, our plan for the staff is to notify the public of the period of public comment for this item. So we would go through the regular process of notifying media and the public so that, again, the public is aware and make them aware of ways that they can participate.
So one thing I would throw out for the Parks Board consideration and the Naming Committee consideration is, given the magnitude of this decision and given these strange times we're in, our hope is that we might be able to gather again in person in October or November. While we're gathering feedback, is this something of such importance that meeting in person and trying to gather as much feedback as possible that we should postpone a final so we can meet in person? I'll just throw that out for everybody to think about.
Commissioner Anderson, your hand is raised.
I would just like to make the point, we have a policy of not changing parks names, and we're going to have I'm not opposed to having public input, but we're having public input to a policy that that is not changed yet, and we've not changed the name of parks, and I wonder if we need to look at different steps of this, maybe make a decision internally before we open it up to the public. I mean, I think there's a balance in all this, but we've decided not forever not to change names. And to have public, input when our policy doesn't allow changing of names. I wonder if that doesn't send a mixed signal in a way, or should we have a little bit more of a process or a couple steps before we get to that point? Maybe we need to see what the board feels.
Okay. And so from this committee, yes, sir, from this committee, a recommendation or recommendations will go forward. And we have heard from Director Odom that suspending our current naming policy is an option for us to recommend to the board. And of course, the board would need to vote on that. And so there is procedure in place to have the discussion and to have the community input, and that is through the suspension of our rules. As our Councilwoman Sharon Hurt has brought this before us, although this has not happened in years, that mechanism is in place to suspend the rules, just as a note. And to Commissioner Haynes, your point on timeline, that would be up to the committee and to the board if we want to extend this to a time where we can have public input. The question then becomes, how long do we leave this open for with the uncertainty of when we can be back in person? The likelihood of that happening in October is greater based on what we're hearing from our city leaders, state leaders. But, if we extend, how long do we do that? Are there any other comments from the board? Any other questions? Councilwoman Hurt is on the line and has raised her hand to speak into the committee. And I want to give that opportunity if there are no other discussion or questions from the board, from the committee. Councilwoman Hurt, are you still there, still wanting to speak?
I am. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity for allowing me to speak. And I basically just wanted to speak to the question in regards to any other new parks that may come. First, I would say that this particular park was chosen simply because it does mark the area where the Freedom Riders spent quite a bit of their time, from Tennessee State Fisk University, where they were meeting and where they marched from. And being that this is the historic Jefferson Street community and North Nashville community that is known for prominent African Americans, it would be befitting to name this particular park to help maintain the integrity of the community and celebrate those who made good trouble in the community for a great cause. So I would just like to say that's the reason why this is so important. And I would suspect that parks in other areas of town would possibly be named after those individuals who may have, or organizations or whatever, because of those people who may have had a significant impact in those particular communities. And we would not like to see that compromised in any way. So knowing the history of the Freedom Riders, I would think that this is the best location to bear such name. And I'd also like to say that we started out with the park on Jefferson Street being named the Jefferson Street Pocket Park, but we did give it a name of Kasi Gardner just last year. I think it might have actually been earlier in this year, but perhaps it was last year. I can't recall exactly when. So those are basically my comments. And I would also take any questions if anyone has them for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hurt. Is there any other discussion from the committee? Commissioner Scott Barnes? Yes, Commissioner Scott Barnes?
Sorry, I'm trying to raise my hand and unmute at the same time. I wanted to come back to what Commissioner Anderson had brought up in terms of maybe having a discussion about changing policy. And in a sense, I wasn't a Parks Board member when any of these policies were put in place. I don't have a sense of what how these policies came about and how changes to the policies were made. So if we are looking at suspending the policy, I guess that's different from changing the policy. And I'm just maybe asking what the process would look like if we were to want to consider making a change versus suspending an existing policy.
I think I would like, if possible, Tom Cross to speak into that, our attorney or administration from Parks.
This is Tom, and I'll make an observation about that anyway. The board is free to change its rules and its policies, but there are some other things that ought to be kept in mind. And one of them is we're often given property with stipulations that have to do with naming. And one of the, if not formal agreements that we make, it's sometimes informal in recognition of some generous donation to the park system, how we come about with a particular name. And another thing to keep in mind, and Director Odom mentioned this earlier, is the applicability of the Tennessee Heritage Act to parks that are named for historical events or historic figures. And that appears to be applicable to this particular park. So we should keep in mind that there are going to be several steps here, and the Heritage Act imposes a really high burden. A 2/3 majority of the members of the State Historical Commission have to vote in favor in order to permit a change like this. This is the same statute that is involved in the movement of statues that have been in the news, both locally and in other parts of the state. So a change in the policy, this is sort of a long-winded way of saying that a change in the policy that ought to be very carefully considered, given why the policy is there to begin with. The board can certainly amend it, but I don't think it's as simple as it might otherwise appear to change names of parks, depending on how we require them and the application of this statute.
Thank you for explaining.
Thank you, Tom. We appreciate that. Any thoughts, any comments from the, I'm sorry, from the committee? Excuse me. All righty, so we have heard from our attorney regarding Commissioner Scott Barnes's question. And so I see three recalling three options then before us, recommendations before us, and that is that we suspend the current naming policy specifically as it relates to no park once named being ever changed, keeping in mind that the community center name goes along with that change. Also, then this issue that Commissioner Scott Barnes raises, and with the input of our attorney, then why was the policy even in place to begin? And then if are we suspending the rule or are we changing the policy? That's something to consider. And then, of course, once we get that taken care of, the public input opportunity as it relates to this request. And so I guess at this point, I need direction from the committee on our way forward. I would like to, I see Commissioner Haynes.
Can I ask a quick question, Michelle?
Yes.
Isn't there a public library at Hadley Park? And so if we were to consider suspending our rules and changing this name, wouldn't this also involve the library and the library board?
I'll yield to, this is Director Odom. I'm going to yield some to Mr. Cross on that, but we are specifically, your purview is parks property. And so that's what we're focusing on. Yes, there is a Hadley Park Library or Hadley Library there. And so I would guess that renaming of that facility would be up to the library board.
Thank you. I'm not sure if Attorney Cross wants to speak into that. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
This is Tom. I concur with Director Odom on that. The naming of the library is going to be up to the library board, I think.
Okay, thank you. So committee, how do we want to proceed with this discussion? There are a lot of considerations, and I see that, I understand that, but we have do you all want to take time to consider the options, get more information? How do you want to proceed?
I'll jump in here. Sorry, I didn't put my hand
Okay.
up.
You're fine. You're fine.
I do think that this is one that does. I come back to your original recommendation of getting more input and public input, and I think that's going to be important. I think the question is exactly what the motion should be, and I would like to make a motion to defer this to for a month, so that this committee would hear this again in the October meeting.
A second. Hello?
Hello, Mr. Anderson. I'm wondering, Dr. Steele, you there? We see you, but you're muted.
I'm muted. I am so
there you go.
sorry.
There you go.
I don't know when I'm muted. I apologize, you all. We have a motion for deferral to our October meeting with a second from Commissioner Anderson. Did you have a question, Commissioner Anderson?
I do not.
Okay, I'm going to do a roll call vote. All those in favor, Commissioner Anderson?
Approve the motion to defer.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Haynes?
Approve the motion to defer.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnston?
Approve.
Commissioner Scott Barnes?
I approve to defer.
Thank you. We will defer this decision to our October naming committee meeting. Thank you all so much for your time and your consideration. Is there any further business before the naming committee that I'm not aware of?
No, ma'am, none today.
None today. Thank you so much. I'll accept a motion to close out our meeting.
Approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott Barnes. We are adjourned. You all will, I guess, stay on until, or however, sign back in for our 12 noon meeting. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.